call this meeting to order. I'd like to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Jim, lead the way, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will begin with new appointments to the commission. Our attorney, Dave Hollenbeck, will be in charge.
Well, there's not a long line to lead. We have no new members having been appointed that we need to acknowledge or accept, so it's the same old gang with us again.
Roll call, Candace.
Yes. It's an executive board meeting, so I will start with the executive board and then move on to the remaining commissioners. Kevin Brightsky.
Here.
Tom Dermody.
Present.
Denise Ebert. Present. Bill Emerson. Justin Keel.
Present.
Wendy Miss. Jim Pressel. Lisa Rosenkrantz.
Present.
Tom Schmidt.
Here.
Jim Tunn.
Present.
That makes 7, so we do have a quorum of the executive board. Now we move on. Kyle Allen, Dwayne Arndt, Jenny Byer, Thomas Black, Austin Bonta, James Burge,
Here.
Robert Carnahan,
Here.
Bill Carroll, Tim Clayton, John Costas, Dinah Dumbris,
Here.
Connie Grammarosa, J.D. Haley, Keisha Hardaway, Bonnie Hawksworth, Tony Hendricks, Vanessa Hernandez Orange, Josh Huddleston, Lori Hunt, Scott Keenan, Peter Land, Tom McDermott, Jack McGraw, Eddie Melton,
Present.
Edward Morales, Angie Nelson Deitch, Randall Niemeyer, David Phelps,
Present.
Linda Pompey, Barb Regnitz, Rick Leifa, Warren Schott, Steve Spivard, Gerald Swets, Sharon Sweeto, here, Mary Tanis,
Present.
George Topol,
Present.
Andy Vasquez,
Here.
C.J. Whitmer, and John Jokic. We have a total of 17.
Thank you, Candace. Public comment, there is no public comment today. Approval of minutes, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion and a second, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Report of the chair. Really, my only comment would be that we did have a conference call with State Board of Accounts to further the discussion, really challenging how much local governments are having to spend on audits and the discussion of, does it always have to be right when we're doing local budget times? Does it have to be, or questioning how they invoice and asking for more detail? And then also maybe incentivizing the ones that are doing well. If they are under the impression or belief that the funding will never come from the state. So how can we help them? They only have 100 auditors, and focus on the ones that need the help versus the ones that are doing well. And so I thought it overall brought a quality discussion. They are going to come up in September for a respectful maybe update, and then maybe have a meeting after with some clerk treasurers that can speak their language to say, hey, how do we help you as well as help local government? So that's really my only report, and hopefully all of us can be here when they do come in September. And then I think Ty would pick a few people, probably the clerk treasurer. Wendy was tremendous in the meeting, and just have a sit down discussion of how we can improve, because all of us cost a nice percentage of funds that could be used to improve the lives in each of our communities versus spending it downstate. So, that time, you're
And they're going to be here in our September meeting?
we hope so, yes, we're trying.
Yeah. I was just going to comment, if your community did adopt a similar resolution to what we had passed here at the NERC Commission, it would be helpful if you could let me know, so we know who has done a similar action. So we did send out that resolution after it was approved by the commission. We can resend it. Candy, maybe we can resend that again, resolution.
And the other thing, whether to Candace or to Ty, issues your clerk treasurer is having with State Board of Accounts, not that, hey, we don't like them, or, but processes that can be improved, that help local governments save time, would be great to have for that September small meeting that we can share. This would help the process from our end, all of our end. So it would be very helpful, an email Candace or Ty, so we have a list of bullet points to say, these are things we see from our perspective that would help the process. So, Mayor.
Mr. Chair, if I'm not mistaken, the last budget session I was a part of, I thought we had appropriated in the legislature to State Board of Accounts additional funding for them to bring on contractors to help municipalities. Because they knew with the ARPA dollars, there would be a lot more audits. I don't, if I remember correctly, I thought we passed that, so I don't know.
That's good to hear, because I don't think it is very clear that they don't still have enough money.
All right.
And the town of Cedar Lake, my town attorney is working on preparing a resolution for us.
Well, and you look at, as Attorney Hollenbeck said, you've got a conservancy district that their overall revenue annually is $100,000, and that audit costs $17,000. It's a lot of money, it's a big percentage, so.
The other thing that happens when they contract out, in my experience, is Crow Chiswick sends, with all due respect, the neophyte accountants, because they're trying to maximize their profit, and so the accountants who walk in, you're educating them and teaching them about governmental accounting. I mean, I had one the other day where the guy had been an accountant with Crow Chiswick for like 3 months, and they sent him out to do an audit on a conservancy district. He didn't even know what to ask for, and the financial clerks get all upset because they end up spending all their time educating the auditor about what he should be looking for. So something needs to change.
Well, we want to keep this relationship going and build on it, so please get that information, that would be helpful. With that, I'll turn it over to the Executive Director, Ty.
Thank you. First of all, welcome everybody, and just if you see a bit more equipment, we had a problem with our live streaming earlier. We got new camera equipment, so thank you for she's like the TV tech person back there trying to keep the camera views going. So we're creating an opportunity to get a little bit more advanced with the tech in here. First, I just want to welcome special guest star today, Erica Tate from Federal Highway, who's joining us. She'll give more of a report and briefing towards the end of the agenda, but just want to say welcome, Erica. Glad to be with us today. Some of you who have been at NERC a while to remember the commissioner surveys, it really gladdens my heart that you've been asking, where is my committee interest survey to serve on these new committees? So that is coming very shortly, so be checking your email for that. And just as a heads up, it's going to be a lot simpler this time around since we've gone to just 4 committees, or moving to 4 committees. So we're finishing that up. We should be receiving that very soon. And then we also tag on, just so this is not a surprise, a couple demographic questions to that survey that we have to assess for our Title VI requirements and also for our Economic Development District requirements. And it just asks you to self-select the categories that are in there so we can report who's represented on our board. So just a heads up, that will be coming to you shortly.
We anticipate there is some transition time getting to these 4 new committees as we transition from the previous 12 or whatever committees to just 4. Anticipate by October that we should have the committees off and running with new schedules and all that. So we'll put that information with the survey. You can respond to the survey about your interest. Technically, the chair here just finalizes the committee appointments, and then we're off and running with the new committees. So, and just to apologize again, we were a little late in Finance and Personnel Committee. That new committee will be assumed, or the Leadership Committee is the new committee that Finance and Personnel is being grafted into, and that will have a different meeting time. So we shouldn't have these situations of running in last minute to the commission meetings anymore once that gets off and running. Also wanted to just give the heads up, especially to those on the county councils. Talea did send out the information on the increase of local appropriations. Again, thank you to Mr. Vasquez and others that have been Justin for helping to take that through the legislature and all. That is the increase in our local share, and that was sent out to all your financial folks of not only the invoice that we send for current year appropriations, but we included the next 5 years so there can be some planning into the budget to know exactly what those numbers are. So hopefully that will help on the county budgeting process. And the last thing I want to say, Talea couldn't be here today because she's on vacation, but I told you, reported last month that we had a clean triennial review, which is our FTA, Federal Transit Administration review. No findings on that, which is tremendous. We also now have no findings, have a completely clean financial audit. So speaking of the State Board of Accounts, we just got through that process and that audit was completely clean. So again, kudos to our financial staff and all the hard work they do, making sure that those books are in order and giving everything the State Board of Accounts needs. So.
And that costs NERC $22,000.
$22,000 is the average bill that we receive, speaking of bills for audits. So that's what we have to pay every year for our own audits. To be fair, a chunk of that is because of federal grants that we have, so that's a big portion of that, but nevertheless, that's how much of NERC's dollars are going towards those audits, is about $22K.
Thank you, Todd. Also, Mayor Bontes in attendance, if you could add that.
I did have that, thank you, as well as Mr. Evans.
Yes, just in time. Environmental Management Policy Committee, Bill Emerson.
All right. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. The environmental, actually, no longer the EMPC, now the Environment Committee. First meeting is the Environment Committee under the new structure, so nice. Met August 1st. We had a presentation from NERC's Jen Birchfield and DNR's Joe Exel on the Coastal Hazards Resilience Needs Assessment Report, which was, and I give a lot of credit to Jen and Joe and Kathy and everyone at NERC for going around and going to, I think, was it over 60% of the communities, I believe, in our area, and sat down and did needs assessments reports for any natural hazards that they're experiencing with climate change and things like that. And it's a really great report. It's on our website now. If you want to check it out, but they did give a presentation on that, so I want to thank them for that. We also, Kathy also gave a update on the Chicago Metropolitan Planning Area Comprehensive Climate Action Plan process. And Jen Birchfield gave us an update on the fall notice of funding opportunity for NERC. So great meeting, August 1st here, and our next meeting is November 7th. So thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Finance and Personnel Committee, Wendy could not be here today. The Finance and Personnel Committee met this morning to review the financial reports for June 2024. In addition, the committee reviewed bank reconciliations and claims registers for June 2024. There is one action for consideration today, a procurement to purchase vehicles for the sub-recipients. This action item comes today for considerable recommendation, and this is for the one vehicle replacement for North Township Dial-A-Ride. Do I have a motion to approve? You do.
Second.
Motion and second discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Technical Planning Committee, Kevin Brightsky.
The Technical Planning Committee met on Tuesday, August 6th, There were 4 actions forwarded to the commission to be taken today. The first is a cooperative agreement for coordination of land use, transportation planning in the Chicago-Gary, Lake County, Illinois, Indiana urbanized area, presented by Tom Vanderrood. There he is.
Thank you.
This could be found on pages 11 to 14 of your packet. The action requested by the committee was adoption, or recommended by the TBC was adoption.
We're working through our new IT system here. So anywhere there is an urbanized area that crosses state lines, it crosses boundaries for 2 metropolitan planning organizations. Federal regulations require that those 2 NPOs have an agreement that determines or that outlines their shared responsibility for that urban area. NERC shares urban areas with 2 other NPOs. Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, we share the Chicago, Illinois, Indiana urban area, and Southwest Michigan Planning Commission in Southwest Michigan, we share the Michigan City, LaPorte, Indiana, Michigan urban area. We have existing agreements with both NPOs for those urban areas, and we update those on a regular basis anytime there's a significant change. So you may recall that this body adopted an updated agreement with the Southwest Michigan NPO a few months ago. At this time, we have an updated agreement with CMAP, Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, that we're presenting here for your adoption. I'll note that the CMAP NPO Policy Committee approved this agreement on June 13, 2024, so it's already been approved. We would ask that you approve this agreement, allow Chairman Germany to sign it, and then we would forward that to INDOT for the final signature, and we would be good for another 10 years until the next census.
Do I have a motion to approve? Have a second?
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Tom. Kevin, thank you.
You're welcome. We move on to resolution 2408, Transit Asset Management Group Plan for Small Providers. Stephen Hughes will make the presentation. That can be found on pages 15 through 32. The resolution on pages 16 to 17. The action recommended is adoption. Mr. Hughes? I don't think we're having any luck.
We're good.
Oh, good. Thank you.
All right, good morning. As many of you are certainly aware, and some of you may or may not be fully aware, hopefully this will catch you up to speed. We are the MPO that's in charge of the subrecipient transit operators. So those, just to refresh everybody, that's City of LaPorte Transit, East Chicago, Valparaiso, North Township Dial-A-Ride, Opportunity Enterprises, Porter County Aging and Community Services, and South Lake County Community Services. So in 2018, the FTA required that all transit operators or group plan sponsors, which would be when an MPO has multiple transit operators and owns the vehicles that are used, that there be a transit asset management plan adopted. The purpose of that is to maintain state and good repair for transit vehicles. So that document guides the decision-making process on which vehicles are replaced in what order. It also deals with technology and facilities. Facilities have much longer lifespan than vehicles, as you might expect. Your bus garage is going to be expected to last decades rather than years. So the plan includes how the reporting is done for the condition assessments. It also takes into account age and mileage of vehicles and other assets, the age and condition. The asset inventory is updated by staff periodically as vehicles are purchased or dispersed. So that part is not a part of the document that you're seeing in front of you, but that is something that we have available for review or internally to make sure that we know what vehicles are in what condition. And the subrecipients are expected to update us whenever anything major happens with a vehicle, but also annually we get condition reports from them for all facilities and vehicles, even if there's no federal interest in that facility. So if you have a bus garage that's paid for totally through local, or if you're operating through City Hall, for example, they still want to know that the buildings that we're operating out of are in good shape. So every 4 years, TAM plan is to be updated. Now, if you're thinking 2018, it's 2024, yes, we are kind of off cycle from that. But that's okay. What we did is in 2020, we had an update. So now we're either 2 years ahead or 2 years behind the standard schedule, depending on how you want to look at it. It does give us the benefit that when FTA releases additional guidance, we're able to incorporate that over the course of a couple of years rather than scrambling to do so if that guidance comes out right before our updates are due. But we always have to look at all aspects of the plan. So we do that by offering that out to our transit operators prior to having meetings, either in person or online. Thank goodness for those online meetings, because I know how hard it can be to leave the day-to-day operations, especially for transit, because things come up very quickly if a bus goes down or something like that. So we have the opportunity to meet with them and say, okay, does this process for looking at how we prioritize the investment in facilities and vehicles make sense? Does that continue to work? And so the bulk of our plan remains as it was in 2020. Most of what was updated was introductory items, but the decision process really stays pretty much the same, which is first we look at, is it a revenue vehicle, so an actual bus that people are riding on, or a non-revenue vehicle, which would be like a mechanic's truck. The age of the vehicle in years, the useful life in miles, and vehicle condition assessment. So more or less is a flow chart kind of going from the top down. There are occasions where a vehicle might have very high miles but be relatively new. Or, in fact, of course, you might have a vehicle that's in really poor condition, not due to deferred maintenance, but you see vandalism, you see there's a lemon in the fleet. So all of these items are ranked in order, but the general rule of thumb is revenue vehicles are prioritized over non-revenue vehicles. Older vehicles generally go first. Vehicles with higher mileage go before vehicles with lower mileage. Now, of course, we're going to say if the vehicle condition assessments are drastically different on otherwise pretty similar vehicles, one vehicle's 3 months newer than the other, they have within, say, 20,000 miles, but one's in poor condition and one's in good condition. That replacement might make more sense to be done that way. But this is a guiding document to help us make sure that we're not replacing vehicles that still have good life left in them. And especially with how much more the vehicles are costing now than they did in 2020. And you're all thinking probably, yeah, we know they're more. It's not much of an exaggeration to say they're double. So if a transit bus was $65,000 in 2020, you're looking at $120,000 today. So it's very important now for us to be making the best choices on how to replace these vehicles, because our communities have their local match that has to be provided, and we need to maximize the use of the money that taxpayers are entrusting us with. Again, all of our facilities that are paid for with federal money have a federal interest. But again, all facilities that are used for transit, even if there's no federal interest, they want to have an assessment on. The purpose of that, again, is to just make sure that we're all operating out of good quality facilities, and also a little bit to help guide the concept of, is there something that we need to be looking at, replacement, and is that a proper thing for federal investment in a new bus garage? Maybe yes. A new carpet in City Hall? Probably not. Although there are circumstances where that might be appropriate. So, with that, I'm happy to address any questions.
Any questions? Mayor Melton?
Thank you. What's the difference between revenue and non-revenue?
A revenue vehicle is the bus that people are riding on. A non-revenue vehicle is like a mechanic's truck, something like that. And thank you for that question. Michigan City Transit and Gary Public Transit both operate their own TAM plan. So they have their own document like this for their use because they're direct recipients of those funds.
We did ask staff to put together a list of all the small providers that are being addressed by emergency.
And that is the 5th whereas on the resolution, so that is in the packet.
Further questions?
That takes care of my question. Mayor, address the same question that I had. Thank you.
Do I have a motion for adoption?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Stephen. Item 10.2, public comment report.
Next, we'll move on to the public comment report for the fiscal year 2024-2028 Transportation Improvement Program Amendment 2402 and 2402.5. And this is an informational part of the meeting. Mr. Vanderhoek, would you explain the difference between 02 and 02.5?
Absolutely. Yeah, this is a kind of a prelude to the next item on the agenda, which is the adoption of the TIP amendment. NERC published or opened up, I should say, a 21-day public comment period for its TIP amendments 24-02 and 24-025, which are amendments to our 24-28 TIP, Transportation Improvement Program. During that public comment period, we did receive one comment on the proposed amendments. That was noted in the public comment report, which is on page 33 of your agenda packet. One individual did send an email requesting a list of projects being sponsored by the town of Schererville. That list of projects was provided to the individual requesting it. When this public comment report was submitted to the TPC, the period had not yet closed. It closed on August 9. So I'll just note that although it's not noted in here, the period is closed, and we didn't receive any further comments beyond the one that was noted in this report. So 24-02 is a TIP amendment dealing with highway projects, highway and trail projects. 24-02.5 deals specifically with transit projects. And those have been separated. It's just an administrative choice that was made by our programming manager for the purposes of kind of easing it through the DOT approval process. So there's really nothing significant about those two numbers other than that's an administrative separation. So, yeah, we're providing that public comment report as information to the commission.
And now we'll move on to resolution 2409 that can be found on pages 34 through 130 for the TIP amendment in general. The approval or the resolutions at the end of your packet. The pages are 34 through 130 for the actual amendment, 35 or 33, 35 through 37, I believe, has a synopsis in your packet of the projects. But the total amendment would be captured between pages 34 and 130.
Tom, any addition?
Yeah, I'll just note that since our current TIP was adopted on June 6th, there have been, project sponsors have requested changes to projects. Those have to be reflected in the TIP if they meet, and that's either done through an administrative modification for a very minor change or an amendment for a more significant change. This particular TIP amendment has 71 projects. Of those, 52 are INDOT initiated project amendments, and the remainder, 20 projects are municipally sponsored projects. So those have been initiated by our communities. A full summary of those changes is included in your packet on pages 34 and 35. And then, as Commissioner Gretzky noted, the resolution which would adopt this amendment is on 36 and 37. And then the detailed list of project amendments is on pages 38 and following. There are a couple of things that I will note. There are 2 new projects that have been added to the TIP, 2 local projects. Those are one new project in LaPorte County related to the Marquette Greenway project, which is being funded through raise grant and ready funds through the federal government and the state, and as well as some local funding. And there are new bridge projects in Porter County. So those are the only projects that have been added that are locally initiated projects. Other than that, a lot of it involves just kind of shifting around funding from cost increases to existing projects and moving projects from an older version of the TIP into the current TIP.
The Transportation Committee recommends approval of Resolution 2409. As Mr. Benwood said, that's found on pages 36 and 37.
Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. A motion and a second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
We have one more resolution, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
2410, endorsing the use of Group 1 Chicago, Illinois, Indiana urban area funding and Group 2 Valparaiso Shorewood Forest urban area funding for projects in either urban area. This can be found, the resolution is on pages 134 and 135, the general information on pages 131 and 134 at the very end of your packet. Mr. Bailey.
Thank you. I have an actual slideshow for this one, so I will walk you through what we're hoping to accomplish in this resolution. As background, after every decennial census, so the most recent census was the 2020 census, the Census Bureau designates urban areas. We talked a little bit about that in relation to our bi-state planning agreements. The Census Bureau designates these urban areas based on population and housing data. Historically, the NERC region has only included two distinct urban areas. Those are Chicago, Illinois, Indiana urban area, and the Michigan City, LaPorte, Indiana, Michigan urban area. After the 2020 census, in which the Census Bureau changed the formula that they used to designate these urban areas, a portion of the existing Chicago, Illinois, Indiana urban area was, as I say, carved out and designated separately as the Valparaiso Shorewood urban area. So on the screen here we have the urban areas as they were designated in 2010, after the 2010 census. And then this map shows the existing urban areas as they've been designated after the 2020 census. And again, you might remember that fall of last year, we went through the process of smoothing out these urban area boundaries. So some of this might be a little bit familiar to you. So part of what we do as an MPO is we kind of expand the boundaries of the urban area. We adjust it to make it more rational and fit more closely with our planning activities. And just so you can kind of see them side by side, you can note, I'll call your attention to the fact that that Valparaiso Shorewood urban area is essentially carved off directly from that previous Chicago, Illinois, Indiana urban area. So the funding implications of this activity of designating of these urban areas is that the Federal Highway Administration then uses those census-designated urban areas to determine where MPOs are required. So anywhere there is an urban area with a population greater than 50,000, they must be part of an MPO. And then they also use the populations within these urban areas to determine the amount of federal transportation funding each MPO and each region receives. So that includes both our metropolitan planning funds, which are the funds that we use to fund this organization, fund staff and projects. And it also includes our transportation funding that we use for actual transportation projects. So as an example, on the screen here, you see that I've kind of outlined, in Indiana, we use this Surface Transportation Block Grant Program, and it's broken down into what they call groups. So there's Group 1 funding, which is flows through large urban areas, and there's Group 2 funding, which flows through small urban areas. Group 3 and Group 4, that funding is for particular areas, but it flows only through the state. It doesn't come through NERC as an MPO. Within NERC's region, we have one Group 1 urban area, which is the Chicago urban area, right? Because that exceeds 200,000 in population. So when we receive our annual allocation of funding through INDOT, it'll say this funding is called Group 1 funding. And then we also have now two small urban areas, two Group 2 areas. Those are the Michigan City, LaPorte urban area, and now the Valparaiso Shorewood Forest urban area. So going forward, we will see three kind of line items, if you will, in our annual apportionment or annual allocation of funding. There will be the Group 1 and then the two Group 2. A further kind of intricacy of the planning or the funding process is that upon receiving that programming authority for those funds, we as MPO NERC, then through our call for projects, we select the projects within our metropolitan planning area that can receive funding. The NERC metropolitan planning area is the entirety of Lake, Porter, and Fort counties. And that's that's the region that we've defined, or the MPA that we've defined, and it's been the same for many years. But federal regulations require that it must incorporate all of the urban area, so the 3 urban areas that I talked about, as well as the areas adjacent to them that are expected to become urban within 20 years. That's the minimum size of that MPA. The maximum would be the entirety of our region, which is what we've done historically. That's where we put that's where we outlined our MPA. So as I said, there are those 3 groups, those different types of funding, but the funding in those categories may be awarded to projects anywhere within our MPA. So we have the 3 distinct line items, but that funding can be used anywhere within Lake Porter and Port Counties. This is probably too small to read for you, but this is kind of how we receive a report from INDOT on a monthly basis that shows our annual allocation, which is on to the left. All those columns are the different funding categories. So there's STBG, CMAQ, Highway Safety, I can define these acronyms if you'd like. It's Surface Transportation Block Grant, Congestion Mitigation Air Quality, Highway Safety Improvement Program, Transportation Alternatives, Section 164, Highway Safety Improvement Program, Carbon Reduction, and Protect funding. So there's the total along the right column. You see it's broken out according to those urban areas. Historically, what NRC has done when we simply had the 2 urban areas is we established 2 parallel kind of programming processes. There is the Chicago urban area process, which has a separate call for projects, and then the projects are reviewed and selected for funding against one another. It's like one competition, and then there's kind of like a second competition, which uses the Michigan City report funds separately. That's something that was decided probably 20 years ago when Michigan City and LaPorte joined, or actually became an urban area. Prior to that, it was simply the Chicago urban area. So that was a way to kind of include this new group of folks involved in the process. So as I mentioned, historically we've broken up these 2 funding sources, but as we reviewed the implications of this new Valparaiso-Shorewood urban area and its kind of historic association with the Chicago urban area, the Transportation Resources and Oversight Committee recommended that we continue to fund the projects in the 2 urban areas sort of interchangeably with the funding from the 2 urban areas. So let me see if I can say this more clearly. The recommendation is to, as it says here, allow highway funding from the Chicago urban area and the Valpo urban area to be programmed interchangeably for projects in either of the UTAs. That means that although when we get the piece of paper and it says this funding is for Chicago urban area, we can use that funding in the Valparaiso-Shorewood urban area, and vice versa. The funding that says this is flowing through based on the population of the Valparaiso urban area, we can use that for projects in the Chicago urban area. And as I said, this was a recommendation from the TROC committee. And when we discussed it at that level, the recommendation was made to bring this up to the commission for their kind of approval and adoption. So that's why we have a resolution before you. This could be done administratively, but the feeling was that the elected officials in this group, in this room, should have a say and should be aware of what we're proposing to do. So the reasons that were discussed for doing this, because it's a different approach from the Michigan City urban area, is that there are, I'll just outline, there's 4 reasons that we outline. The first is that there are existing projects in our TIP in the Valparaiso-Shorewood area that are funded with Chicago funding. Okay, so there are, this is actually shown on the screen here, there are $17 million worth of funding $17 million in funding programmed in this particular urban area, the annual allocation for that urban area is much less. So if those projects were solely to be funded through the Valparaiso urban area, we would have to remove them or significantly delay them. In most cases, these projects have already begun. They've already been using federal funding, so they're kind of on track to be completed within our current TIP cycle. So it would be a significant, it'd have a significant impact on these projects if we were to remove them from the TIP and say that they can only be funded through the Valpo funding. The second reason is that by allowing the nursery staff to do this, it gives us the administrative flexibility to move funds to the projects that need the funding when they need the funding. So if you look at this the spreadsheet, for example, on this slide, you'll see that the Valparaiso projects are programmed in 2025 and 2028. So there's no projects funded in 2026 or 2027. So during those years, that Valparaiso Shoreward funding could then be shifted over to the Chicago urban area. And then in these years where there are Valpo projects or Porter County projects that are in that area, that funding could be shifted over from the Chicago urban area. So it allows the nursery staff to move the funding where it needs to be in order to make sure that we're spending all that funding and not giving it back to the federal government. Because we can't roll funding over.
The bottom line is that I think the entities of these areas saw more of a disbenefit of not being part of the Group 1 Chicago area. So I was impressed with, they wanted to continue to be part of Group 1 for all the things that Don has mentioned.
So
that's why Transportation Committee requested or recommended the approval of Resolution 24.
Yeah, and if I can just make two more points on the subject. Okay. So the other two reasons why we really think this is important to do is that, in contrast to the Michigan City urban area, the Valparaiso Shoreward urban area is contiguous with the Chicago urban area. So there may be instances where a project would actually cross into the two urban areas. So there's a possibility for overlap of projects. And then secondly, it's already 2024. We're going to be preparing our 2026 to 2030 TIP this year for adoption next year. At that point, we're already getting to the point where it would be into the new decennial census. And it's quite possible, because there is so much population growth happening in that area, dividing those two urban areas, that there is we don't know, this is a bit of speculation, but we think that there's a strong possibility that those two urban areas could be combined, meaning that we'd be, if we were to develop our TIP, looking out into the future, if we were to distinguish between those two funding sources, it might be a moot point, because in the future they would be combined anyway. So those are the four reasons for that. And I think Commissioner Brodsky kind of outlined the general reason why we think this is a good programming approach. I will take any questions if there are any.
I've got one, and I may not understand it, but I look at Lake County only, that it's light blue and dark blue, and Cedar Lake's in the dark blue, but why is it low? And so I'm assuming we're in the Chicago, Illinois, Indiana.
That is correct. Yeah, there's a formula that the Census Bureau uses to connect population centers, and the formula did not connect Lowell to the overall Chicago urban area. That's why we kind of separated out. But Cedar Lake was included.
Yeah, I see that. Okay.
Further questions?
Lakes of Four Seasons included in Chicago as well?
Lakes of the Four Seasons is not included. Lakes of the Four Seasons was also carved out into its own smaller urban area, so it didn't even reach the threshold of 50,000. So there is no group 1 or group 2 funding associated with the population in place of the Four Seasons, but they are eligible to apply for their funding through that group 3, group 4 program, which is close to the state. That would do the same with the whole. So anything that's within the urban area is not eligible for that state funding. It has to receive its federal funding through the EPO.
Secretary Keel. Question about why, we're considering Valparaiso Sugar Forest being part of, or eligible to interchange funds with Group 1. And we have this for Michigan City and LaPorte at some point. I suppose having our own autonomy is nice, but sometimes there might be a need for larger projects if the funding is available.
So that is a great question. I wasn't part of the conversations 20 years ago when Michigan City and LaPorte were adding to the MPO, where that urban area was established and they decided to create these 2 parallel tracks. My sense is that when you're part of the Chicago urban area cohort, okay, you're part of a much larger group, and so the competition is much stiffer and it's a lot more complex. So for Michigan City and LaPorte, they've kind of enjoyed a more easy programming process where we can just kind of work it out together and figure it out. There have been instances where Group 1 funding from the Chicago urban area has been used on projects in the Michigan City LaPorte urban area, but those are typically like a special request that goes to the TRAC and then gets filtered up through the committee structure to the board. If that were, there's a possibility that you can have that conversation with me. At this point, no one's initiated it, but if that was something that we would consider doing.
So something that was a project in Group 2 for Michigan City that was larger than the funding that was available, they could approach Group 1 and ask for some sort of exchange of funds in order to accommodate a larger project.
Yeah, I would say there's no formal process established for doing that other than working through the TRAC committee and the transportation, what will be the transportation committee and the board. So yes, that's a possibility.
For my benefit, everyone's here's benefit, a smaller community that was outside of one of these urbanized areas, say Hebron or La Crosse, are they eligible for Group 1 or Group 2 funding, or do they have to go for Group 3 or 4, whichever is applicable?
So as I said, NERC can spend this funding anywhere in its MPA, metropolitan planning area, which is the entire counties. But again, historically, because those smaller communities have received funding from the state, they have not received the urban area funding.
And a final question for you is, I'm wondering, over a long period of time, have we ever evaluated who the winners and losers when they're competing for the funding? Does it kind of shake out that everybody gets their proportionate share over time, or are there some communities that are just generally more successful in getting funds from Group 1 or Group 2?
So on an annual basis, we publish our annual list of opportunity projects, so that would show you on an annual basis where the funding is going. But I will say that I guess to my knowledge, in recent history, we do not publish a quote-unquote winners and losers report. And the reason is the intent of the federal program is not to distribute funding to communities. Okay? And that's why it goes to a metropolitan group rather than individual communities based on population. The intent of the program is to work cooperatively to identify the best projects on a performance basis. So when we do our call for projects, we don't really look at which community is going to per se as one of the criteria that we're evaluating. Like how they didn't get a project last year, so now we need to get one. We are really looking at, we're doing our best to look at actual metrics to say, okay, is this relieving congestion? Is this meeting our goals and objectives of our long-range plan? So that's what we're trying to do. It's supposed to be performance-based, and it's kind of, we're supposed to kind of not really look at communities and getting a quote-unquote fair share, because we're really looking at the network, irrespective of community.
I agree with that. It should be performance-based, although I do wonder, these projects are introduced by local communities, and so if they're not doing a good job advocating for themselves, even if they've had a really good project, if they're not bringing it forward, it'll never get funded. So I would be curious to see if there's communities that are just not putting forward projects for funding. Some of these local.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good. Point, and certainly that's something that I think the NC staff can look into. Well, I guess there's two things. One, we do try to do planning projects that identify where those projects are. So in that respect, we are kind of putting projects out there and suggesting projects to communities. If there is a sense that maybe additional outreach needs to be done during all the projects, the NOFA process, then we're certainly open to suggestions.
Further questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion on this resolution? Oh, I'm sorry, Mary.
When you're considering these population areas, you need to think too, what's happening in Illinois? Their negative census numbers are coming over to Indiana. Should we get more funding because of that? Because we obviously our populations are growing in that particular area. We should be getting some more funding. Is there a possibility for that? Is that another consideration?
Yeah, so that happens every 10 years with the
Right.
census, really. So that's just, we kind of have to wait.
We have to wait.
Yeah. When they recount the population, then they change the rule, kind of apportion that between the different MPOs.
Right, because we can always already identify the people that are coming from Illinois into Indiana.
Yeah. And our funding has grown because of that, because our population would grow over the. And I guess the other thing you have to look at is it's kind of based on the regional population more so than, if we do have, in Northwest Indiana, we have some areas that are growing, so we also have some areas that are losing population, so it does tend to balance it out where we see very small growth region-wide.
Right. But we all know where it's growing.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important when the 2030 census comes out that everybody push to get everybody counted. Because with COVID, we didn't get the numbers that we wanted. And we're more populated than what those census figures show.
Further comments, questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion for a resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second, further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Goodman?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to thank Mr. Vanderwood for coming from Michigan from his vacation last week to help me in TBC. We addressed a lot of the issues we're addressing today and advanced them today because he was there. So I really appreciate staff, particularly Mr. Vanderwood, for being there.
We'll thank his family as well for letting us know.
It was raining that morning, so
The next meeting of Technical Planning Committee, to be known as the Transportation Committee, will be September 10th, 2024, at 10 a.m. at the NERC offices. And they will continue to assume the same dates and times as the current TPC with much of the same membership structure. NERC staff will be in communication with all members of TPC or Transportation, the new committee, regarding the start of the official launch of the Transportation Committee in October.
Thank you.
So this concludes my report today. Thank you.
Let's move on to NDOT and our good friend Adam Parkhouse.
Good morning, everybody. Though today is off to a rainy start, I can say it's already a better day than Tuesday, because no good day ever includes a call to shut down I-94. Although I will say, there's always a moment of panic when that happens, and a sense of relief when we found out it had nothing to do with us, so we don't have to take all the hopefully it didn't cause too many problems over here, but I know it's a stressful day. So, Flex Road, so Toby Randolph from Parks was here a couple months ago, gave a really good presentation about the Flex Road project. We are having a public meeting. We had one last night over in Hammond, and then we have one tonight on the Illinois side over in Homewood. If anybody's interested in that, it'll be at 5 o'clock open house, 6 o'clock presentation at the Irwin Community Center in Homewood, right over the state line. Everybody'd like to be in attendance. We had moderate attendance last night. We did great. They asked lots of questions.
They now represent more than 15% of the total fatal crashes in Indiana. So we are experiencing more fatalities per vehicle mile traveled today than any time in the previous 10 years right here in Indiana. So as you all have heard, I hope from NDOT with their new option and that $50 million that you can apply for safety, it's an area of focus for us as well as NDOT. And we have kind of ramped up our efforts nationally. We've always been committed to safety, but hopefully you all have heard of the Safe System approach. I know you've heard of it. I know Kind of established shared with you all about the Safe System approach. We also created a national roadway safety strategy, and we put our money where our mouth is when we created Safe Streets and Roads for All Discretionary Grant Program. I know some local public agencies here have received awards, and we want to encourage you all to keep applying for those. We've also made additional money available through the Highway Safety Improvement Program, which Tom mentioned, and we gave some money for planning projects related to safe streets and roads for all. So we want to make sure you are aware of that, taking advantage of that. I'm sure you all are, but tell your friends, go back and tell your teams and your staff. And we are here, as Tom mentioned, to be a resource to you all. We are currently working on a grant making workshop in conjunction with LTAC, and right now it's looking like that workshop may happen in conjunction with Road School. So hopefully your staff and teams are planning to attend, and we'll get more information out to you. And then we are also conducting a kind of mini peer exchange during the NPO conference in September, NPO/IR conference in September. So again, if you can make it, please send your staff so you can hear about how local communities in Indiana have been successful in getting grants and what challenges they are experiencing in getting grants, so that we can work through those and make sure that our communities are safe and we have the infrastructure we need. That is really all I wanted to share with you all, unless you have questions for me.
Questions? We appreciate you being here today.
Thank you all for having me.
Thanks, sir.
Other business? Other business? Announcements?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I have an announcement. Mr. Emerson and I both belong to the Indiana Association of Floodplain and Stormwater Managers. And I'm vice chair and committee chair for this year. And we managed to get it up in Northwest Indiana for the first time ever. It's going to be in Michigan City, September 11th through 13th. So if any of your municipalities have MS4 people, please have them look into coming. There's training sessions for stormwater management as well as education and information for floodplain management, which affects all of our communities.
Thank you. Congratulations. Other announcements?
I've got one, but it's not really important because their Cedar Lake Chamber of Commerce golf outing has exceeded and got all 72 players, and they can't accept anymore, so that's a good thing.
There you go. With that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
You do. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Have a great day.